The time is 6:15. Here is the news, edited by Dilni Gunawardana, read by Victor Raj. Here are the headlines of the local news. The President requests all the citizens to provide their utmost support to develop the country. 13 Sri Lankans are safely evacuated from the violence-hit Sudan. Minister Manusha Naikar says 8,000 workers will be recruited for the employment in Korea. Sri Lanka files action in Singapore for Express Pearl compensation. Foreign oil companies are in talks to commence retail fuel sales in Sri Lanka by June. Foreign news, WHO warns of a biological risk after Sudan fighters seize a medical lab. Sports news, cricket. Sri Lankan batsmen shine at the Sri Lanka-Ireland second test match. Local news in detail. The proposals relevant to the implementation of the plan under the extended financial facility of the IMF to Sri Lanka are being debated in Parliament. Joining the debate, the President said that Sri Lanka has reached to a revival path. The President has requested all the citizens to provide their utmost support to take this move forward. He stated that he took the responsibility of the country amidst the protest campaigns when the country collapsed in last July. MP Nimal Siripal de Silva said the assistance of the IMF should have been sought earlier. However, it was implemented under the guidance of the President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The assurance given to the investor regarding the country due to the fund facility of the IMF is of much more significance than the amount provided. If there are any other alternatives rather than obtaining the IMF assistance, should be disclosed expeditiously. MP Ran Wickremaratne said that the weak management of the economy resulted in the downfall of the country. He further emphasized that the central bank should be an independent body. Joining the debate, Minister Bandula Gunawardana pointed out that everyone should face the reality. This challenging situation was caused by the unsustainable economy maintained since gaining the independence. He said that the officials also should take the responsibility of this situation, although the politicians are always blamed. The minister also emphasized the need of a regular procedure in order to solve the prevailing issues, no matter which party governs the country. Taking part in a media briefing today, Minister Manusha Naikar said 8,000 workers will be recruited to be employed in Korea. The Department of Human Resources in Korea has expressed willingness to recruit workers under the E9 visa category in the field of building ships from the next year onwards. Sri Lanka has decided to allow Indian tourists visiting Sri Lanka to make payments in Indian rupees. Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, reiterated that making the Indian rupee a designated currency by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka enables not only trade settlement between the two countries in INR, but also Indian tourists coming to Sri Lanka can use INR for transactions. He was speaking during a webinar on economic scenario of Sri Lanka, current status and way ahead, organized by the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. He also expressed support for the linking digital payment interface between the two countries. Remarks by the Governor of Sri Lanka's Central Bank come a day after the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Dinesh Gunawardana, launched a special cover commemorating Sita Temple in central of Sri Lanka. The High Commissioner of India highlighted the areas of prospective economic cooperation between India and Sri Lanka. He particularly focused on connectivity, IT, renewable energy and tourism. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with more local news, Sri Lanka's Attorney General's Department said that legal action was filed with a court in Singapore to claim compensation for the damages caused by the Express Pearl maritime disaster in the Sea of Sri Lanka. Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam told the case was filed through a law firm in Singapore. He further stated that the court will be confirmed about the compensation amount in the future. He also said that a detailed report has been called for from the Marine Environmental Protection Authority to make the compensation claim. The Express Pearl incident is the worst marine disaster to have struck Sri Lanka. It was carrying 1,486 containers when it caught fire off Colombo on May 20th of 2021 and began sinking. A plethora of marine life in the Sea of Sri Lanka were affected and scores of marine animals died as a result of this disaster. Experts opine that the damage caused of the marine environment in the Sea of Sri Lanka will be experienced for centuries. The US-based oil company RM Parks Inc. and the British multinational oil and gas company Shell plc have held a discussion with the Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara on commencing retail fuel sales in Sri Lanka in the first week of June this year. The lawmaker held a virtual meeting with the officials of the two companies today to discuss the agreements, policies, logistics and timeline pertaining to the commencement of the operation here. Accordingly, it was decided to set a date in mid-May to sign the relevant agreements, Wijesekara said in a tweet. Following a visit to the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminus Limited tank farm last week, the technical officers of the RM Parks Inc. and Shell plc offered to upgrade CPSTL berthing facilities to be in line with international standards and safety requirements, the ministers said further. Officials of Power and Energy Ministry, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the Board of Investment, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the CPSTL also joined the discussion. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri says that the first group of Sri Lankans living in the Republic of Sudan where violence erupted earlier this month was successfully evacuated this morning. Accordingly, a total of 13 out of 41 Sri Lankans in Sudan have been received by Sri Lanka's acting Consul General in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia upon their arrival. Meanwhile, 12 other Sri Lankans are in Port Sudan awaiting evacuation. Sri Lanka continues to monitor the evolving security situation in Sudan and is closely working with the international partners, including the Government of India and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to evacuate the stranded Sri Lankans. For any inquiries, the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Cairo and Sri Lanka's Honorary Council in Khartoum are in regular contact with the relevant parties in Khartoum, including the Sudanese authorities and the Indian Embassy in Khartoum, to secure safe evacuation. That ends main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, Sri Lanka has tested 4 more individuals positive for COVID-19 yesterday. The Department of Government Information confirmed this in a press release issued today. This brings the total number of COVID-19 cases detected in the country since the outbreak of the pandemic in late 2019 to 672,143. That ends Watchlight. Moving on to world news, let's take a look at the headlines. WHO warns of a biological risk after Sudan fighters seize a medical lab. The Russian president signs a decree on retaliatory measures on sanctions. Ed Sheeran denies copying Marvin Gaye at the copyright trial in New York. World news in detail. The World Health Organization warned a huge biological risk after Sudanese fighters seized the National Public Health Laboratory in the capital, Khartoum, as violence punctured the fragile ceasefire. A high-ranking medical sources told CNN that the lab, which contains samples of diseases and other biological material, had been taken over by RSE forces. The WHO said medical technicians no longer had access to the facility. Naima Zaid Abid, the WHO representative in Sudan, described the development as extremely dangerous because there are samples of diseases such as polio, measles, and cholera in the lab. Russian state news agency TASS reported President Vladimir Putin signed a decree introducing possible retaliatory measures in the case Russian assets abroad are seized. The decree outlines that if Russian assets are seized by hostile countries, Moscow will place foreign assets in Russia under its temporary control. It further declares that temporary management of assets can only be reversed and undone if the Russian president decides so. British singer Ed Sheeran has appeared in a New York City court to deny that his song Thinking Out Loud copied Marvin Gaye's song Let's Get It On. The trial is expected to last at least 1 week. If the jury finds the pop star liable for copyright infringement, the trial will enter a second phase to determine how much he owes. The court case comes as the singer prepares to launch a North American stadium tour and release a new album. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines once again. WHO warns of a biological risk after Sudan fighters seize a medical lab. The Russian president signs decree on retaliatory measures on sanctions. Ed Sheeran denies copying Marvin Gaye at a copyright trial in New York. That ends world news.
Development news.
Sri Lanka's first export-oriented potato chip processing factory has been established in Bandarville by a young farmer company in Sri Lanka. The factory has been completed in the Kahatteville area of Bandarville. The Kahatteville Young Farmer Company is carrying out the production and export activities of the potato chips factory. This factory was built with a small-scale agribusiness participation program at the cost of 20 million rupees and with a financial contribution of the Kahatteville Young Farmers Company. That ends development news. Moving on to sports news. Today was the third day of the second test match between Ireland and Sri Lanka at the Gold International Stadium. The game was interrupted by the adverse weather. Sri Lanka scored 357 runs for 1 wicket when the play was interrupted. Dimuth Karunaratne scored 115 runs, while Nishan Madhushka added 149 runs for the second scoreboard. Kushal Mendis scored 83 runs, not out. The match will commence at 9:45 a.m. tomorrow morning. That ends the sports news.
Go ekakthiyana youth ekat life eke change ekat niyamata set wenna as wahagena dakapu hina habe karanna youth ekat niyamata set wenna friendship එක menna.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Selinco Life has opened its latest eco-friendly branch building in Matale on company-owned land, providing the picturesque hill country city a facility custom designed to meet sustainability specifications and to deliver an enhanced customer service and experience. It is the first Selinco Life branch to be built on company-owned land in Matale districts and the 30th purpose-built planet-friendly branch built by Selinco Life to date as part of the company's green agenda. That ends business news.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go එකක් තියන youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account. NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Economic news, courtesy of
LONC Finance is taking the power of innovation to the next level, winning 5 goals at the Technovation Awards 2022, leading the digital revolution with cutting-edge interbanking digital payments. LONC Finance claims the overall gold award whilst also claiming an extraordinary victory in digital banking.
Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena held a discussion with Italian Ambassador Rita Giuliana-Manel about the expansion of trade and investment relations between the two countries. The Premier urged to explore possibility of investments in new areas during the discussion with the Ambassador of Italy, Rita Giuliana-Manela, and European Union Ambassador Denis Chaivi when they called on him at the Temple Trees recently. That ends economic news.
LONC Finance is taking the power of innovation to the next level, winning 5 goals at the Technovation Awards 2022, leading the digital revolution with cutting-edge interbanking digital payments. LONC Finance claims the overall gold award whilst also claiming an extraordinary victory in digital banking. LONC Finance will continue to innovate with the next generation digitalization of financial services, delivering a superior customer experience.
Weather report.
Showers or thunder showers will occur at several places in the Sabargamo, Central, North Central, Uva and Northwestern provinces and in the Trincomalee and Mullaitivu districts during the afternoon or night. Fairly heavy showers above 50 mm are likely at some places. Showers or thunder showers will occur at a few places elsewhere during the afternoon or night. Showers may occur in the Gold and Mathura districts during the morning too. That ends weather report. To wrap up the evening news broadcast on Radio Sri Lanka, let's take a look at the headlines once again. The President recalled the citizens to provide the utmost support to develop the country. 13 Sri Lankans are safely evacuated from the violence-hit Sudan. Minister Manusha Nanaikar says 8,000 workers will be recruited for the employments in Korea. Sri Lanka files action in Singapore for express pearl compensation claim. Foreign oil companies are in talks to commence retail fuel sales in Sri Lanka by June. Foreign news, WHO warns of a biological risk after Sudan fighter sees a medical lab. Sports news, cricket. Sri Lankan batsmen sign at the Sri Lanka-Ireland second test match. With that, we wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka.